Welcome to the Cafe Nightly Show. I am your host, the Goldsmith. It is the 14th of August, 2024. And it's kind of a light day in Upland. Every Wednesday we have this live stream. We did have that today, so that did happen. But it's something to keep an eye out, watch out for. Live stream every Wednesday, 9 a.m. PT. Kind of an opportunity to see what Upland's highlighting for that week. It could be a contest that's ongoing. It could be a new layer 2 experience that there's a place and a way to share. But we did have a little bit of news that isn't really news. And we did get a reminder on the Bitget staking rewards. Little bit. We got a little bit of sour grapes on that still because it's a big prize pool. Remind you to participate. Not everyone can participate with the Bitget pool. So definitely worth noting that is going on today. So we'll remind people to continue to participate if they're doing so. We do have that date coming up very, very shortly, the 19th. We'll get into that reminder that Upland put out. And then I do want to touch on something because I keep hearing this weird thing, especially with Sparklet, especially with a deviation between what some people in Upland are playing Upland for and what other people are. And the people who came here for today versus the people who came here for 5 years from now. The people who came here 2-3 years ago and thinking that in 3 years, which is now, the game would be something that it isn't. So I do want to talk about something, and that, the broad topic of dividends is what I want to talk about, how I want to talk about that. And we're going to have to do a few more of these. I think we're going to have some slow times in Upland over the next couple of weeks. And as we have those slow times, maybe interject some of these topics because the idea of dividends have come up again and again, and they took our dividends away. We'll look at what that actually means and what dividends actually are in the game of Upland and how that all ties together. We'll get the disclaimer out of the way because I don't want it to be taken as representative of the team of Upland. They have their own thoughts about dividends, but realistically, we'll talk about what they are. All these opinions expressed by myself, they're mine and mine alone, should not be taken as game strategy or financial advice. They don't represent the game of the team of Upland. Any guests or contributors who we do have come on, they have their own opinions, so welcome to them. Should not be taken as game strategy advice. Should not be taken as financial advice. They don't represent the game of Upland, the team of Upland, myself, the Goldsmith, to the Cafe Nightly Show. Easy enough. Icing on the cake, leave it for the end. Yeah, we'll leave the icing on the cake for the end. We'll start with the boring stuff, and a little bit of a rant because I guess I've got a rant along with being bored here. I'm bored because this is something we've talked about 3 or 4 times, and people have gotten salty about it, and it's gone back and forth. And you've had to stick up for Upland and why Bitget was the premier, the first to come out, and then you had to have these conversations of look. There's still all these other rewards in different places you get it. And then Upland talked about it again. And we had to go to have that conversation again. Well, now we're having that conversation again. 1.5 million Sparklet was reserved again. That's a pretty massive token pool. So 1.5 million Sparklet reserved for this token pool for taking Sparklet and bringing it to the game of Upland. Here is the last call. Last call at everyone. The clock's a ticking. And the August 19th snapshot is just around the corner. This is your final reminder for everyone who connected their Bitget account to bridge an additional net Sparklet to secure your share of the massive 1.5 million Sparklet token pool. Bitget, 1.5 million UPIX, bringing Sparklet into the game. We have a leaderboard here, so it's we have a little fun with this leaderboard. Ooh, we can have a little fun with that leaderboard, and I will have a little fun with that leaderboard. But let's read the announcement. Again, we already read these words. Let's read the rest of them. If you're already started, now's the time to maximize your Sparklet holdings in Upland. Remember, the more you bridge in and keep in Upland, the bigger your slice of the distribution pie. Don't miss out on this last chance to enhance your Sparklet portfolio. Act now before time runs out. Click the leaderboard below. We'll take a look at the leaderboard. I do want to frame this a little differently other than to complain that I couldn't participate in Bitget, which a lot of people couldn't. We already had that conversation. And many people did. It was a broad conversation throughout Upland of, yes, we understand you had to start with someone, broad appeal, easier access with Bitget than would be elsewhere. get a lot of those things, and that we had to have this pool and these rewards for the first iteration of the big exchange that Upland started with. I get that. We get that. We can put that to bed a little bit and just say, I would like to get rewards other places as well. But the other part of this, that's worth pointing out here is there is a significant reward for people who are in the game of Upland prior to the TGE. At least it's a balancing reward, if that's what you call it. I call it a form of dilution, and what it really is Upland diluted the value of Sparklet by putting more Sparklet out than was currently in the market, expanding the overall Sparklet based on activities that happened, or largely based on activities that happened before the original release, not requiring any new purchases. Technically requiring some activity. We'll get into those activities, or a reminder of those activities. But yeah, there's some activities tied with them, but it was ultimately meant to be tied to activities that happened prior to the original TGE. So this payment here, yes, it's an additional reward for bringing additional Sparklet into the game through Bitget. It is something that people who have been a part of Upland for a long time, they can still participate in. But it's also an opportunity to reward people who aren't part of Upland or haven't been part of Upland for taking Sparklet, bringing it into the game of Upland, and holding it in the game of Upland. There is that opportunity for people who aren't part of the game, who see Sparklet on the open market, who look into the utility, who say they're going to hold it for 6 months, a year, seeing what happens with the token. Maybe they're a maxi, maybe it's somebody in the crypto world who is also into gaming, a crypto gamer who's looking at the gamified aspect, or maybe they just say, what can I do for this with staking in the meantime that I've got value to? They bring it into Upland, they get the reward for doing so. Once it's in Upland, they can look at what their staking rewards are and how they can do their staking rewards. Things like the Upland Spark Exchange and other staking pools and other staking sites, exchanges, they have the opportunity to get in on those. So this pool helping reward people for bringing their Sparklet in the game of Upland as opposed to leaving it in a MetaMask wallet, it's a good thing. I think on the whole, it's a good thing. It makes some of us jealous that we couldn't be part of it, but it is something that helps bring some of that Sparklet back into the game of Upland. Let's just take a peek. Let's take a peek. It's been updated. This is the Sparklet net bridged in for Bitget players. That means you had to have bridged in from Bitget. Lockie is saying at 411,970. That is not a typo. That is the amount of Sparklet Lockie's brought in. Dizzy Diskey, 340,000. Ray Ram, we saw these numbers before. Again, we were looking at the cars, who won the cars. Abdullah is on that list, number 4. Matsuda R is on the list as well as number 5. So it's kind of nice to see these the names down the list. The higher your number, the more of the share you'll get. Keep in mind, you are going to get a share of these rewards further down the list. So it's kind of nice that it's not just the top 5 who are getting rewards on this list. Top 92, look at that list all the way down. So this is something that you can still get in on. The 19th is the end of that snapshot. That is going to push you through into the beginning of next week. So you do still have the opportunity to do so if you haven't got in on this. Again, I say this is kind of boring. It kind of is. But it is something that I do like to put out there that, yes, one more time, this is a reward that people who are part of the game of Upland, who have access to Bitget, had the opportunity to take a reward on. People who weren't part of the game of Upland, hopefully, they saw this incentive, they took advantage of that incentive, they saw that incentive as a reason to bring the Sparklet into the game of Upland. And I really hope it served that purpose, in addition to rewarding Upland players, longtime Upland players, for buying Sparklet outside the game of Upland and bringing it back into the game. Good to see you, Rob. Good to see you, More Cheese. Swarley. Big A will take the most of this anyway, so no big loss. Yeah, I know. Good to see you, 6 Wicks, and good afternoon, Swarley. So this is, again, a little bit boring. We've talked about it before. Going to talk about it again. It's just what it is. But that is something that we do have going on term. We did have today, because it wasn't Wednesday, we had Sizzle Season Racing. As I said, the time for a live stream every Wednesday, 9 a.m. PT. This is something that, again, highlights something in the game of Upland. They do something competitive. They have an announcement. We see a new layer 2 that people haven't gotten a chance to look at. We did have racing going on in the live stream today, so it's exciting to have that. I'm glad that we have that on a weekly basis. That's being put on by Light Up Dan. That's something that is on a weekly basis, and you can continue to keep your eyes open for and watch next week. Well, that's out of the way. That's about all I have to say on that. Let's go take a look at one thing in the game of Upland. Stop sharing the screen for a moment so I can get there. One thing to take a look at, I did talk about dividends. And I've talked about dividends a few times. We have had a change, a shift in the way dividends are paid out. Dividends in the game of Upland are essentially a way of Upland compensating people or rewarding people. I guess reward is the right term. Rewarding people for holding on to a property for a duration of time. Ultimately, it is an incentive that helps keep people or reward people for holding those properties without any other utility existing. If there was more utility, if there's more you could do with your property, there's more reason to hold the property. There's more things to do with the property. If there's less utility, then Upland has to kind of stimulate that economy. Upland has to kind of be the incentive. Upland has to encourage people to hold the property for a longer period of time than they would on their own. They buy it and flip it. That was a theory. That's one of the things people do with properties. But if you hold on to that property, you're getting a dividend long term, and it makes more sense to hold that property. At the end, you still have that property. Maybe the value's gone up. Maybe it's not. Maybe new utilities come, but you're getting that little reward along the way. And the reason that it started again was because there wasn't anything else to do with the property. The more there is to do with the property, the more there is in the economy without the dividends, the less necessary the dividends are. This has always been the theory of Upland. It's been the theory of Upland since dividends started 4.5, almost 5 years ago. When the game started, it wasn't immediate dividends. Dividends were applied soon after. When those dividends were applied, 17 point. I don't know. I think we're at 17.6% is what those original dividends were. Upland talked about the idea for a long time, by the way, talked about the idea of eventually good to see a blue. It talks about this idea of potentially lowering or decreasing what those dividends were over time. They said that the idea of dividends is to make up for a lack of utility, limited things that you can do. As we continue to grow the economy in different ways, have different types of earning potentials, we are going to, over time, decrease the dividends. That's something Upland been talking about literally for almost a year before they did it, before they went from 17.6 down to 14.7. When they did that, again, people were like, oh, I lost so much. Really is still a huge dividend if you think about it. You buy a property in Opix, you get 14.7% of that mint value over the course of the year. There's many ways to multiply that mint value, specifically collections. Every city has a standard collection. You can apply in your standard collection. You have the ability, if you got lucky and it happens to be in a neighborhood with collection, you can apply it that way. Put that in that collection, whatever it is, a limited, an exclusive. Maybe it's a rare. Put that in that collection with an additional earnings boost. And of course, if you bought it for less than the mint price, then obviously you are getting your dividends based on mint price, not based on purchase price. So, what you could be getting could be definitely more than the 14.6 we're talking, or 14.7 that we're talking about as being the standard dividend for holding a property. Now, since we already said that the 17.6 has been decreased to the 14.7, that could change, right? Yes, Upland's been talking about changing. We've been at the 14.7 for a very long time, except this spring, you mean frost season? Frost season. Back in frost season, end of winter into early spring, we instituted this thing called gamified earnings. And what gamified earnings did was it technically, according to Upland, create a new base earning. made that dividend on an annualized basis a much lower amount. It calculates on a season-to-season basis, so it's floating throughout the year depending on activities in the game of Upland. But it starts down at 4.7 with a multiplicatory effect based on how many of the tasks that are asked to complete you complete. And the list is 12 to 17. Yeah, I think it was 17. 12 to 12 to 15, 12 to 17. We'll see how many Upland keeps put out there. Tasks that are out there, and you only have to finish 5 of them to get back to that 14.7, 14.6 dividend. That's the same dividend you had before the gamified earnings. Why would Upland do this? Well, it's essentially saying that the people who are active, because again, keep in mind there's people who put effort into the game, people who don't, people who are putting effort in, putting gamified activity into the game, they are getting more reward out than somebody who property without being an active participant in the game of Upland. People who aren't being a part of the economy, people who aren't buying and trading and selling, people who aren't sending to properties. There's some of these activities that are as simple as sending to 3 properties that happen to be meta ventures. You do that, you reward those 3 meta ventures to send each, and maybe you went in that meta venture and took a look around and saw if there's something for sale. Maybe you buy something, maybe you don't. But that does stimulate at least send fees. And that does create a player-to-player economy. Good to see Trees. That player-to-player economy gives you that opportunity for there to be some commerce in Upland, encourages that to continue to happen. And for those who are participatory, you get a bigger dividend, a bigger reward, because Upland's incentivizing you, just like the original dividend, incentivizing you to do something. Instead of holding property, now you're being incentivized to do these activities. Now, with that said, it could Upland up the threshold and say you have to be more active. Instead of 5, now you have to do 9. Yeah, they absolutely could. Could Upland decrease that 4.7 base down to 3.5, and then you still you complete your 5 tasks? Instead of getting the 14.7, you end up with a max of 13.2 or whatever that number ends up coming down to. Absolutely, they could do that. There are those possibilities. There could be more to come. And if they did, it would not be a failure of promise. It would not be coming back on some promise that was made years ago. Ultimately, the promise that was made years ago, if you go back to the original white paper or you saw the announcements along the way as people were coming to the game, I'll tell you, I've been in the game for 3.5 years. There's a lot of people who've been in the game for a lot shorter period of time who say they feel they're betrayed because when the gamified earnings came in, it changed the way the dividends pay out. When I came into the game, there was acknowledgement that these are the dividends today. There's a potential going to change. Upland talked about the potential that dividends were going to change over time for like a year before they ever changed them from the 17.6 and came down to the 14 and change. That wasn't something that happened overnight. That wasn't a surprise. That was talked about for a long time. And a lot of the people who I'm hearing, oh my gosh, I'm losing my dividends with this gamified earning, those are people who came in after that change, after we went from the 17.6 down to the 14 and change. So it does seem a little weird. It seems like people aren't reading all the details, and it's definitely understandable. It is a simple game that some people play on the toilet. It is something that some people put 5 minutes in a game and 5 minutes into a day, and they don't think much about. It's one of the many phone apps that they have downloaded on their phone, and that's understandable. But when we look at the big picture, no, Upland is not taking away the dividends willy-nilly. It's something that they talked about as being a part of what they're doing long term. They're technically, if you listen to Upland, and I think they are, looking at what other types of activities are happening in the game of Upland. What opportunities people have to earn. Could they have a meta venture? Could they build their own layer 2 experience? Could they participate in other layer 1 gamifications like car racing and foot racing, and maybe many others to come? Fingers crossed. Maybe many others to come down the line. Can they participate in those things to be part of the economy and have earnings? And if they see more and more of that develop, or as Upland develops more and more of that, they may de-emphasize that dividend for holding properties. If there's more things you can do with that property, if there's more ways you can earn with that property other than just holding on to it, then we could see those dividends come down as well. So I did want to put that note in at this point. The future of Upland as we look forward, dividends may change. People are already looking at the change of the gamified earnings as being scary for them. Don't be scared. It's a part of the way the game's set. It's not a surprise. It's not out of left field. And ultimately, why are you getting the dividend? Why does that dividend exist in the first place? It's Upland's incentive. It's Upland's encouragement for people to hold on to that property long term. And there's ways to increase that. And ultimately, as long as there's use for UPX like minting properties, that dividend is going to mean something. 6 months, 10 months down the line, I get, a $250,000 UPX, a little over $250,000 UPX a season, a little more of $250,000 UPX a month, and I can apply that to city openings. I can do lots of things with that, and theoretically, as I increase my property holdings, that amount's going to increase over time, and I can kind of say, oh, at the very least, if I spend every single UPX I have, I wait a month, I'll have a $250,000 UPX to either jumpstart a city release or participate in some other way in the game of Upland. And when I see things happen and there's an UPX sale, I can say, oh, great, I have the UPX because I've just passively been waiting that build up in my account. I didn't have anything to spend the UPX on. That balance, that pool, will continue to grow. And maybe that rate will change over time. Hopefully, as that rate changes, there's other ways I can make UPX as I continue to play the game of Upland or be an active participant. And again, the great news about the 14 change dividend, or I should say, the great news about the 4 and change dividend, the base dividend, is you can get it up to the 14.7. And the great news about the 14.7 is if you participate even more, you can get that up to 15.2 times 50.2 APR over the course of the year. So it is something that as you continue to participate in the game of Upland, as you continue to hold on to properties, there does continue to be a reward. Other than that, I mean, I am looking forward to maybe getting a little more information on the upcoming NFLPA season. Reminder that we are in totems right now. I do want to kind of, and there's one thing as we get time to, and as we have holes in the schedule, and we don't have a lot of news, it's nice to sneak a couple little small things in along the way as well. One thing that I did think was an interesting point to put out on our totems and looking at how they line up with gameplay and the types of things we're doing with them as we're participating. One quick trick here that I did realize that some people aren't utilizing, because I did see things in comments in general that seemed like this was something that was escaping people. And we did mention a lot of the tools that can be used to keep track of your feeding schedule. How many hours between feedings, how much do you feed for your totem, and obviously penalties. You'll get all that information as well. But if you're feeding it every single time it's scheduled in the right amount, you get the maximum reward. That's what this is all about. That's why you have these tools to make it easier. But I do want to take a look at something that kind of ties in with that, and that is make it easier on yourself. So let's take a look at making it easier on ourselves. People were like, did I feed my totem? I don't know. Oh my gosh, am I going to double feed? How am I going to double feed? I can't double feed. I can't waste the totem. No, please don't. There is a solution, and it's not that tough. Let's take a look at the solution. Oh, there he is. Look at him. Isn't he cute? This little toucan, minding his own business. Let's take a look inside. Boom. Inside of my toucan, there's a few different things. Obviously, I can see my traits, and if I have a magic decoder ring or I've gone and done some research, I know what I'm looking at when I combine all these things. I know I can calculate how much I'm supposed to feed and how often. I know my penalties. If I don't feed, I know what my storage is here at the medium, right? And again, not to get into any of those things and break those things out, but I can read all this here from the traits. Can I come back? Get out of my traits. Get back here. And I can come back and I can come look at a few things. I can go to my spend token here. There's another place where I can go and do the spend protum. I can move this to another property if I chose to. I can locate in the map and see where it is. And I can copy link if I want to show other people my totem and show them what it looks like. But here's the big one. Here's my spend history. This is how I know, did I feed it 10 hours ago or 6 hours ago? Did I feed it half an hour ago? Maybe I woke up in the middle of the night to feed my totem. Again, I said don't lose sleep over these things. But let's say you woke up to feed your totem and you went back to sleep. And you say, shoot, I don't remember so well when I'm tired. Did I feed them? Come back here. I can see my last feed. The last feed at the top. The first feed is here. You see each one in order. So my most recent feed, August 14th, 2024, 7:37 p.m. That's my local time. I fed 21.67 protum. Done deal. I have that refresher. I don't do a double feed. And by the way, once I know the right amount to feed my totem, look at it's right there. I don't have to go back to some table. I don't have to go do some research. Yes, I do have to keep track of when's the next time I feed it. I either use a table to do that or I just put it on my schedule, my calendar. I feed it at this times during the day. If you have a totem that gets fed every 8 hours, every 12 hours, or every 24 hours, and I have 3 or 5 actually, but I have 3 different colors that get one that gets fed every 8 hours, one that gets fed every 12 hours, one that gets fed every 24 hours. They're going to get fed at the same times every single day. It's not like these ones that are a 30-hour cycle or a 30-hour interval where you are crawling from one day to the next and feeding at different times during the day. So if I know what time I'm going to feed, I just go in, I feed that same amount. I add the however many hours to here. In this case, that's 12. So every 12 hours I go and feed, and that's it. That's it. The number's right there for me. It makes it so that it's harder for me to make a mistake. Go and check there. Save yourself the aggravation of double feeding. Save yourself the aggravation of, oh, was it 21.37 or 57? I don't remember. Or was it 20? Was this one the one with 21 or was the other one with 21? It makes it that much easier. It's a quick tip, and hopefully it makes it a lot easier for you to feed your totems. Who can feed my totem at 2:07 a.m. PT? 2:07 a.m. PT is 5:07 a.m. on the East Coast. I'm not quite up yet, Blue, but I know some people might be. So maybe somebody can do that for you. Just maybe. All right. Easy enough. Let's end it for the night. Let's put ourselves out of our misery and look forward again to see what's going to happen for the rest of the week. Thank you so much for being here. Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. PT. We get together. 19th next Monday, 9 a.m. PT is the cutoff of that Bitget leaderboard. Get yourself a share of that 1.5 million Sparklet. Reminder on that. We are in the middle of sizzle season. We will continue to remind ourselves that we have those gamified earnings. Check your leaderboard. Keep track of where you are along the way. If you do need to figure out some of those tasks, find some time to do them. A lot of them don't take that long. A lot of them might cost a little bit of OpEx, but they don't take a lot of effort. So take the time, get those things done, check those off the list, increase your gamified earnings. Your gamified earnings share. So get your better score, get your higher earnings. And of course, because we are in the middle of a earning event for Sparklet, or we have a way that we have Sparklet essentially being given out as a reward or a dilutionary reward, if you ask me. You do continue to have benefit from continuing more of those tasks to get a higher reward on your Sparklet when you get your dilutionary reward in Sparklet. So keep in mind, there's a lot of value to take advantage of sizzle season, and to continue to make things work or continue to complete tasks. Thank you so much for being here again. If you're in the Upland Cafe Discord, feel free to unmute your mics. The floor is yours. Good night.